Welcome to the Vet Med Wellness and Leadership Podcast, where we discuss central challenges vet med leaders face, such as burnout, stress, and difficult interactions with clients and staff, just to name a few. In each episode, you will hear about actionable solutions that you can apply to your practice and invitations to connect with fellow leaders who are passionate about improving the wellness of the vet med profession. By subscribing, liking, commenting, or sharing this podcast, you are helping more veterinary professionals find the resources shared in these episodes. Thank you in advance for listening and supporting this show. I hope you enjoy it. All right. Hey, everybody. Crystal Stokes here with Dr. Dani Rabwin, who is a DVM and founder and CEO of Ready Vet Go, the first veterinary mentorship program of its kind. And she is a very passionate and experienced veterinarian. She's unofficially mentored countless new graduates throughout about her 20 years in small animal practice. Her career began kind of accidentally back in 2020 when she persuaded a reluctant practice owner to hire a new graduate with the promise that she would personally onboard and guide her throughout the early stages of her career. They had extraordinary success together, and there are so many benefits to the practice that's helped her realize that veterinary mentorship was an obvious career trajectory. So a little bit more background. She holds a bachelor's of science from UC Davis, where she transferred from Cornell, and her DVM is also from UC Davis. And she completed a small animal internship at Michigan Veterinary Specialists. And she's been in small animal practice since about 2004 and lives in Northern California with her son and a menagerie of beloved pets. So Dr. Dani, thank you for being here with us today. And I wondered if we could start off with maybe a little icebreaker around a couple of your favorite stories of working with animals.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. When you asked me that question about favorite stories of working with animals, I had two completely different stories that popped into my mind, and they're short. I can share them both with you. The first was in veterinary school. I was in a lab sitting next to a friend of mine, and we heard that an international veterinary society was offering grants for veterinary students to do international research. And we decided that we really wanted to go to Nepal. So we hatched up a plan to go to Nepal by studying yak parasites. And so we received this grant, and we spent a summer in Nepal with some Nepalese veterinarians trekking in the Himalayas, following a herd of yaks. And the parasitology department at UC Davis outfitted me with a portable microscope that was solar powered. So I would hike through the Himalayas, and I used the sun and a mirror and all kinds of equipment to look at parasites in yak poop. And it was fascinating and amazing and got me to a unique part of the world that I would not have otherwise gone.
How cool.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. And I learned a lot about research. And then the other story that simultaneously popped up in my mind at the exact same time is just, throughout my many years of practice, having seen such a wide variety of animals. But one of my favorites was just this little hamster that was brought in by a representative from a third grade classroom. It was a classroom pet. And it was the teacher's aide and the student. And they brought in this hamster, and it had a little problem with its skin. And they had put together a budget, and she took notes, and I had to go through everything with her and the differentials. And I prepared an estimate, and she had to go back to her classroom, and they took it to a vote to decide what to do. And we ended up treating the hamster, and it was just a really wonderful experience. And it wasn't huge or life-saving or anything like that, but it was just so moving to me. And one of the things that I just love about this profession.
It's so touching, those little stories of what the impact that teacher arranging for a class to be so thoughtful and to work together to make decisions. Like, those are big time adults.
Yes.
A lot of us adults even lack.
Exactly.
What a lovely story. Thank you for sharing those. I was thinking, as you were talking about your travels to Nepal, I had an animal experience when I was an undergrad as a wildlife conservationist, where I did an internship that I just knew it was with sea turtles. And I was like, I would love to be around basically a dinosaur. And so I signed up for this internship, not realizing it was night shift work. And I'm a total morning bird. Like, 9 p.m. I'm done. So this job started at 9 p.m. and ended at 6 a.m. So it's the only time in my life where I've ever really been awake in the night hours, but it was special to be with a sea turtle and experience what nighttime is like. Like, it's just a whole nother world and really quite magical. It's one of my peak experiences.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And I love those stories because, when you start seeing what opportunities are out there, you can have so many wonderful experiences that you wouldn't normally have in your daily life,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, if you're willing to look for them, there are so many neat things out there that we can do. Thanks for bringing that in today. And so leading us into, I kind of like on the spirit of adventure, I'd love to know more about your origin story, how Ready Vet Go even came to be. How did you get here? Where did you start?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I graduated in 2004 from UC Davis, and I've just had this really wonderful, very satisfying career. And I've loved almost every minute of it and have had the fortunate experience of having really amazing mentors and guides, and haven't really had a burnout experience like is so common for so many veterinarians for the obvious reasons that we know. And because I always was so enthusiastic and I really loved to teach, I was kind of an informal mentor for any veterinary students that would come through whatever practice I was working at, or vet tech students. And it's something that I just loved. And the practice that I was at I'm still there. I've been there for almost 10 years, and we're a 6 doctor practice and very, very busy. And, the practice owner after a while had sort of a no new grad policy. This is really common that I hear with veterinary clinics because new graduates are very time consuming to train. And we were just so busy. And I reached this point in my career where I really was looking for a new challenge. And I approached him and I said, I'd really like a new project. And I think it's, fair that I receive a small raise and I will onboard her. Let's find somebody and fill this position. And he agreed. And we brought on a new veterinarian, and it was just really this wonderful partnership. And she really grew. And she started to come to me with questions that I knew were not about her own cases. And I said, where are these questions coming from? She said, oh, I have a friend here and I have a friend there. And there's practices where they're not receiving the same kind of support that she was. And I said, it was the beginning of the pandemic. Everybody was getting used to being on Zoom. I said, let's just form a Zoom group. And we formed a Zoom group with new veterinarians, plus a seasoned practitioner who was an equine vet transitioning into small animal. She felt new. So we formed this group and we met every month, and I loved it. I just loved it so much. And I would hang up from those meetings feeling just so revived and like it was something that I felt really passionate about. And I decided that it was really needed. I looked around. There really wasn't anything like this. There's more things popping up now because of the need. And I decided to take my career in a different trajectory and start Ready Vet Go, which is a mentorship program for new veterinarians.
Okay. My curiosity is peaked. Can I go back a little bit further?
Yes.
Because I noticed in your story that you've had this natural draw towards teaching and mentorship. When you look back, did you always know you wanted to be a veterinarian when you were a young child?
Yes, I was definitely one of those young kids who, I remember everybody in kindergarten, we all wanted to be veterinarians. And as I got older and older, this friend group, one by one, they all changed their career paths. They had different professional ambitions. I was like, wait, doesn't everyone still want to be a vet?
I love that.
And I always did. And everything I did really was to achieve that goal.
Okay. And similarly, if you look back throughout your life, did you also enjoy teaching or explaining or showing or mentoring? Was that a part of your earlier years?
Yeah. When I look back on it now, I do recognize that is something that I have really enjoyed, but I didn't really appreciate it. I didn't recognize that it was something that I was drawn to. But now when I look back on these other experiences and realize it's something that I've just really always kind of been drawn to, when my son, he's 16 now, but when he was young, I always would go into preschool classrooms and talk about, dog bite prevention. And throughout the 20 years that I've been doing this, I always host local Oakland Unified School auction events where I auction off a day with a veterinarian, and I have a whole gaggle of students who follow me around and the clinics, and I just love teaching them. So it's something that I've really cultivated over the years and didn't really realize I was doing it.
Yes, it seems like it's kind of your secret superpower. Like one was really obvious at animals and medicine and woohoo, that's my trajectory. But there was this other secondary side to you. And I remember in our first conversation, something that really also struck me about you was your clear love of working with people as well as animals, because oftentimes in the animal world, that's not the case. Sometimes we go into the animal work because we think we don't really like working with people. So hopefully if I choose the animal path, I can do less people stuff. But that was not the case for you. Can you speak to that as well?
Yeah, it's such a good point, and it's so true. I mean, we hear this all the time. I'm going to go into veterinary medicine because I really don't like people. And I just, okay, put on the brakes. You have to work with the person, they always say, on the other end of the leash. And while my origin story of wanting to go into veterinary medicine was definitely because I loved animals as a kid, my story has really evolved. One of the activities that I have the new veterinarians that I work with do is talking about our big why and our origin stories. And when I share mine, I share that mine started with my love for animals. I really liked science. It seemed like an obvious path for me. But what's really kept me going is my love for people. And now my why is really, I look at my love for veterinary medicine as a way to connect with people. And I connect with people through their pets. And once I realized that, it added a whole other element of joy to what I do. And it also helped me understand that when I'm working with clients to help them achieve the outcome that they want for their pet, it might not be the outcome that I would pick for my pet or that somebody else would choose for their pet. But if that's the outcome that this family wants and they're satisfied and I can help get them to that point, it is very, very satisfying for me. And that's something that I really try and share with veterinarians when we get hung up on the gold standard and wanting to do everything and feeling hard on ourselves when clients don't choose the outcome that we would necessarily choose for ourselves or that we think is best. We just change it a little bit, the framing and way we look at it, then I think it can lead the way for a much more satisfying and joyful career. And for me, that's just come sort of naturally.
You're onto something with that. An earlier episode I did, I don't remember what number it was. I can link it in the show notes though, with Dr. Roth and Gerard, who founded a company called Guardian.
I loved that episode.
See, I'm glad you heard that because
I did. I was like, preach, yes.
It's a different way of looking at it. And I said, similarly, they trained us to do this as psychotherapists, which is we are here to support the pet parents in making the best decision for them, their pet, and their situation. And similarly, as a psychotherapist, let's say you and I are working together and I have a very strong opinion about what you need to do to relieve whatever your depression. And maybe that's not exactly what you want, though. You're the one driving the bus. I'm just your little co-pilot, with some useful suggestions. But ultimately, I need to know what it is you want and how I can help you get to where you want to be, not to where I think you ought to be. And it's really a relieving feeling to understand that. I think it really takes the pressure off as a working professional, like a veterinarian or a therapist, to be able to say that realignment and perspective of empowering the other person. It's in some ways it sounds kind of novel, but I also think it's very mature and a very comforting way to engage with people, and it makes people less scary.
Exactly. And I think it's such an interesting comparison with psychotherapy. I hadn't, of course, ever really thought of it from that perspective, since that's not my area. But to hear you say that just resonates so much with me. And I can imagine, in so many professions, if we're so set on a particular outcome that another person has to choose, it sets us up for disappointment and sadness. And if you let go of that outcome and we're working to be, I love what you just said, like being a co-pilot to help them choose the outcome that's best for them and their family, it can take a lot of pressure off.
Yes. Well, we're already kind of getting into some of the things that you are actively doing with your mentees. So not to jump ahead too quickly. So I wanted to get more into the development of Ready Vet Go, which you already kind of alluded to. And also let's get some of the behind the scenes of how this program works. Because the people that are listening to this podcast are, veterinarians, practice owners, managers, and veterinarians or vet techs, also students. So some of them may be in that place where they feel, what I hear a lot when I speak with people, they feel alone. They'll feel that I'm the only one struggling here. There must be something wrong with me. My lack of confidence is my problem, and I'm just not doing it right. And I don't want anybody to know about it because I'm quite embarrassed. And that can be in any way, whether it's new docs that are coming in, just feeling that they're overwhelmed by the breadth of what they need to face, as well as practice managers that feel like they're juggling 800 balls and they should be able to keep all of them in the air all the time. So I would love to know if I'm putting myself in their position and thinking, mentorship, like there are other people that might feel this way, or there are people that have been through it that might be able to help me, or what's this thing we're talking about?
Right. Yeah, there's such a need for it, and people are juggling so much. And there is this, sort of feeling when you come out of veterinary school that you have all of this information and you should already have the confidence and the knowledge and be able to just dive right in. And that is not the case. And those of us who have been doing it for a long time know that. And it is easy to really feel alone. And what I provide is what I think is a really safe place for new veterinarians to share some of their concerns. The program is a formal 6-month program that is designed to be done while transitioning into private practice with a new career. And so I've had veterinarians as fresh as a couple of days out of veterinary school, all the way up through about 6 years who felt like they needed extra support. I would say the average veterinarian is between 0 and about 2 years. And I really work with the practices. So this isn't a program that I encourage new veterinarians to just sign up for on their own. I really like it to be in conjunction with a practice, because I think what really can help provide for a satisfying career for new veterinarians is spending a good amount of time, more than a year. The turnover rate for new veterinary graduates in our profession is 30%. 30% of new grads leave within their first year. And I think that's sad for our profession. And I don't want that for our profession. And so much of the joy that I've received has been because I've been in practices for a number of years. And so I work with practices to help them mentor their new veterinary graduates with the hopes that they will stay on and improve retention. And it's definitely turning out to be that way. I mean, the numbers for the people that go through my program are so much lower than the national average for turnover. So I really, yes, so we're making a dent. And I want buy-in from the practices, because when we have Zoom groups, which we have set Zoom groups that we meet throughout the 6 months that we work together, and they are at varying times, and inevitably somebody who's signed up for one of those Zoom groups is going to be at work, and we'll need the buy-in from the practice to close the door, have a sign up and say, I'm on a meeting for an hour, and not be bothered. And every practice that I've worked with has wholeheartedly endorse that, because they really see the benefits. So it's in conjunction with the practices. So practices basically hire me to help onboard and mentor their new graduates. And we do it with a 6-month program that I designed. There's an online curriculum with modules talking about things like client communication, managing time, personal finances. We talk about difficult conversations like quality of life and euthanasia. So they have the online format that they progress through at their own pace. And then we have the Zoom meetings, which are anywhere from 1 to 4 times a month.
Oh, nice. So if I joined, I have 2 different questions. They're completely on different sides of the spectrum. But either first one would be, if I were to join, is there like a certain enrollment period? Like it starts on December and June, or can I enroll anytime and it doesn't really matter where I enter, because the Zoom groups aren't necessarily a lesson. They're supportive of the content that's online.
They are supportive, but we do have set times. And I really have found that when we start as one group and progress with the same group through the 6 months, there is so much trust that happens that they get so much richer and deeper as we progress. So the 2 open enrollments that I have are in January and July. And then for small practice groups who have like 5 or 6 new veterinarians to enroll all at the same time, that we can start at any time. So open enrollment for 1 or 2 veterinarians would be January or July, and then small practice groups would be anytime they want to enroll.
I love cohort-based things. My life has been so rich from the cohort things that I've done, where I've made lifelong friends from it. And it's so special that you go through something together and you make those memories. And that's I'm a big fan of cohorts.
Yes, I am too. I wasn't sure how I was going to make this online mentorship program work, and the cohort model has been very, very successful.
Yeah.
And, I feel like a part of these cohorts. I'm sad when they're over, and I still
Yeah.
keep in touch with all of them. So
This is wonderful. Okay, the question I probably should have asked earlier, it was coming up so strongly just as you were describing putting this together, is what is your why? You asked that to all of the people that join your cohort. What is your why?
It's such a good question. I mean, my why really has evolved so much over the years, but right now I look at my why as, I do what I do so that I can build community and strengthen relationships with people. It really lights a fire in me. I love animals, but when I'm stuck in an exam room with somebody, it's because I'm catching up about their grandkids or talking about what they did over the summer. And so my why has really evolved. I do what I do because I really thrive on these connections that I get with people. And so it's something that I get joy from while I'm on the floor working in the veterinary clinic, and now even more so in these relationships that I'm cultivating with veterinarians as I support them through their careers.
Oh, that's a beautiful why. And I feel like there's a big ripple effect to what you do, because if starting, especially getting people when they're young in their career, if they can have this experience, it's a positive experience with their cohort and you, and building the confidence in how to engage with their fellow teammates as well as clients, that can really create a sense of trust and relaxation with other people. Like if we come in feeling kind of nervous about people, like I like animals and people are scary, to learn that we're actually, just one more species. We're all just trying to do our best. And lots of times the discomfort and anxiety we feel is because we don't really know how to communicate or advocate for ourselves or build confidence. And so a mentorship program like yours, I think, can go a long way to sort of spreading this joy of being in relationships with other people.
Exactly. And you just said words that I use all the time, like confidence and communication. Sometimes I feel like I'm a communications coach because these new veterinarians come out with all of the knowledge. I'm not teaching them medicine. They know medicine. Mm. I'm a cheerleader and a confidence builder. And our safe Zoom groups are a way for us to sometimes act out role-playing things where we have to explain things that are hard to communicate in lay terms, or bring up quality of life when it's a really difficult thing to initiate. And so if we can work some of those things out in this really safe, supportive environment, then when they go out into their practices, there's just so much more confidence and comfort. And
yes.
Hopefully a little bit more joy, because ultimately what I want is for veterinarians to have long-lasting careers.
Absolutely. You and me, sister.
Yes.
What I love so much about this podcast too, my joy of doing it, is just connecting all of these conversations. I imagine this as a bunch of draft horses, like pulling together in the same direction of, at the end of the day, I just got to throw mine in there. I can't help myself, is that I always go back to the existential part. Like, life is short. It's not forever. And if we can help ourselves and other people have more purpose and maybe some pleasure along the way of whatever it is we're doing, whether that's helping animals or whatever, running a practice, then isn't that what we're here to do? It's just to feel like it meant something and it was hard work, but there was also enjoyable along the way. There's some meaning to it. Then why not? We all can contribute in our own way. And some of us are really good with the people and the communications. And I know I've met people who are amazing with systems and organization and like the building blocks. And I love just watching it all come together. I want to speak a little more to the nitty gritty, because I know some people listening will want to know, like, wait a minute, I need to be able to picture this if it's right for me, because my schedule's crazy and I just don't know if it'll work. So let's imagine this comes out, maybe it's somewhere around January. If somebody's thinking maybe I can enroll in January, or I have a small practice, but we do have like 4 people in a cohort that I think could all start together in our practice. Can we just like walk through what it would look like so I can envision it if I'm considering doing it?
Sure. So basically, let's say you were a practice with 4 veterinarians and we were going to start as a cohort. We would have an introductory meeting where we would all get on and meet each other and talk about how the program works, and set up a time when all 4 of us can meet together. Mm-hmm. And I would enroll the new veterinarians in the online learning platform, so the 6-month program. And there are 6 modules with videos. I have downloadable tools with templates and scripts for communicating complex lab results and things like that. So they would progress through the modules on their own time. Mm-hmm. And then as a group, we would come up with the times that we were going to meet together online. And depending on what type of a practice environment it is, we can meet at various times during the day. I'm pretty flexible. I have a group of emergency veterinarians, and 7 p.m. is the best time for them. So we meet at 7 p.m. I have another group that likes to meet at 7 a.m. Yep. And so we meet as a group. I cap monthly Zoom meetings at 12 people. So we can have a maximum of 12 people to talk about each module every month. So once a month, let's say month 1 is client communication. So they'll progress through the client communication module. They'll watch the videos, download the tools. We'll have a Zoom meeting with the entire cohort, which is up to 12 people, to talk about that particular topic. Then we break into small groups of no more than 3 veterinarians to meet anywhere from 1 to 3 additional times per month. Nice. So the larger cohorts are meeting once a month, and the smaller groups within that cohort are meeting once a week to once every other week, depending on what level of enrollment people participate in. And so there's an opportunity to dive really deep into those with those smaller groups. But if somebody were to enroll in the program where they just meet once a month, there's so much information that can be obtained from those monthly meetings and progressing through the modules.
Oh, that's beautiful. And is there like an official ending, anything I need to do to bring it to a close that last month?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So at the end of each module, there are multiple choice questions to answer, because one piece that I haven't mentioned is this program is approved by RACE for 12 units of continuing education, which is super exciting. And so at the end of each module, participants need to answer the questions. And then at the end, I basically just send everything off to RACE and they get their 12 continuing education units. We always have one big meeting at the end with the entire cohort. And then once I step out at the end of the 6 months, the participants really are all communicating with each other, because we will have had a text thread going, and those often keep going even once I'm out of the picture. And so those connections and the support that they have built with each other over the 6 months really stay with them.
Oh, this is so good. It's like a triple win. You know, you get your continuing education credits, you're getting skills that you did not learn in vet school, and you're coming out with a community.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Now there's something that you and I had kind of mentioned between ourselves offline that I don't want to leave out of this podcast, which is curiosity. Mm-hmm. I'd love to have you speak to that and the importance of curiosity with those that you work with.
Yeah, I use that term a lot, that I ask the new veterinarians to get curious. I think when we walk into an exam room, we don't know what the pet parent's experience is. And if we don't ask and they don't volunteer that information, we're going to lose out on an opportunity for connection. And when, we talk a lot about body language, and if I bring up a diagnosis that is difficult or has a poor prognosis, and the client is, in the corner, or their arms are crossed, or they're not speaking, I think it's up to us to gently ask what's going on. What is behind all of this? And if we can understand where these pet parents are coming from, we can really help guide them towards an outcome that is good for them. Mm-hmm. And I think if we aren't curious, we really miss out on that opportunity for connection. And so getting curious and having that sort of guide you, I think can be really, really helpful. And so it's something that we talk about a lot in our meetings.
Secret for you from a psychotherapy perspective, curiosity is the opposite of fear. You can't do both at the same time. So when we have people who are very anxious, and anxiety is huge in vet med, huge, right? It's just, oh my gosh, you can't avoid it. You're going to vet school, you're going to be anxious. Mm-hmm. Coming into clinical practice definitely provokes anxiety. And one way to work with that is just to get massively curious. As soon as you go from, what is this owner thinking? What are they going to do? What if I think I'm not doing it right? I have imposter syndrome. They know I'm a baby doc. I don't know anything. To, I wonder what their experience is like. Wait a minute, it's not all about me. Like, what's going on with them? Let's just drop down and get to know that person and just quiet the noise. It gets quiet all of a sudden. So
exactly. It's such a good point. And I love what you just said about, fear being the opposite. And I think that is so much of what motivates people in these exam room situations when they're quite tense. There's this fear that if I ask a question, I might look like I'm not the expert in the room. Yeah. And, that's already something that new veterinarians struggle with, is really wanting to portray themselves as the expert, which they are. And it takes some vulnerability to ask questions and to get curious. But I think when you open the doors for vulnerability and curiosity, you really can form really deep connections, even if it's something that's very brief, like in an emergency setting with somebody that you're not going to see again. But to be able to quiet down the space in that room, like you said, and be a little bit vulnerable and curious, I think the clients more often than not will match us with that and really open up. And then we can learn where they're coming from, and we can learn what their values are and how it relates to the outcome that they want for their pet.
That's so beautifully said. I know if I were on the receiving end of that, it would be very calming to me. And the interesting, when I learned the language behind this, the light bulb went off in my head, was the term emotional contagion, which is if I walk into a room highly anxious, the person in front of me is going to be like, whoa, something's going on. And then they'll get anxious. So if I can walk into the room curious and open and calm, then that patient or client might be more curious, patient, and calm. And I also remember, as psychotherapists too, I think we struggle with the same thing that veterinarians do, which is now you're the expert and you walk into a room with a new client who is suffering. And it's, as if we're supposed to come in and magically know their diagnosis and treatment plan like this. And to come in and say, well, while I may know a lot of things about a variety of mental health issues, I've not walked in your shoes. I don't know your life or what your experience is of this. I see something written on a piece of paper, but how about if you try and give me the insider's point of view of what it's like to be you and educate me, like you be the expert on you. And I think that's really nice for people to hear too, is to relax and know that they're going to be listened to. And same thing with a pet parent, to come in and say, I've never met your pet before. I don't know what your all's life is like, and what you may be seeing. And again, we have the quick write up on their chart, but there's probably a lot more to the story. And it's nice just to take the time to get to know that history. And I guess it's kind of hard though. I can already imagine playing devil's advocate in my head of, we're so busy, we can't be in the room for 30 minutes getting their life story. And I was like, oh, this is why I like being a therapist. Because part of our job is the depth of that.
Yeah.
I think there's a sweet spot for many people. And some people, I think, thrive in the faster, quicker environments, or maybe it is a condensed version of that. And other people, there's a podcast I did with White Whiskers, and they have a model where they really get to spend an hour to 90 minutes with a person. And that's their model. And it's a different kind of medicine, like end of life care. And so I think that's another personal decision as a veterinarian of what's your style of connecting with people and the type of veterinary medicine you want to practice. And I bet the mentorship program, they get to kind of also unfold and discover that too.
Exactly. Yeah. They get to work out their own style, because my style isn't going to be for everyone. And, I do find that the curiosity piece and the vulnerability piece, once we get comfortable with that, it really actually speeds up the process, because we're not, sort of shuffling around what the real point is. If a client feels comfortable sharing with me that they're concerned about their pet's quality of life and they might not want to pursue the tests that I've just recommended, well, we've just saved a lot of time. And it can really speed things up. So there's trust and security, and it's time saving. And so I think it can be used in so many different ways. And it's so interesting to hear you say that, because when I first started doing this and I would explain to these veterinarians about the way that I speak in the exam rooms, and there was some confusion and there was some concern that it would take longer. And what I ended up doing is just recording myself. So when you enroll in the program, you get access to a video library of me in exam rooms. And hearing me speak, because it was something that I realized people actually wanted to hear the nuances and the actual language that I use, and to see that I can be in and out of an exam room in 7 minutes or 8 minutes and still have it feel very, very thorough.
Yeah.
And so that was an important piece that I've ended up including, obviously with permission from the families, is these videos, so that people can hear lots of different ways of speaking.
Oh, this is so good. All right. So we're coming down the home stretch here. So I want to see if there's anything else that you feel you'd like to speak to about Ready Vet Go or the journey that you've been on before we, so I guess, scratch the itch of people's curiosity and tell them where they can find more about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the journey has been, I think the journey really has been the origin story that I shared with you, but then also seeing really amazing women sort of pave the way ahead of me. I have loved listening to your podcast because you bring in such a wide variety of people who have the same goal of helping our profession. And we just come at it from slightly different ways. And I just feel like the more the merrier. And just recently, you had one of my oldest and best friends, Dr. Cindy Trice with Relief Rover on, and she has been a personal inspiration for me. We went to veterinary school together, and to see her, find this need, her way of helping our profession is by relieving them so they can go on vacation and go on maternity leave. And she is really spreading the gospel of relief medicine and elevating that in our profession. And she's just doing some amazing things, and watching her find a need, do something about it, and having it grow was very inspirational for me to see that there is this need with mentorship. And actually, I am the person who can fill that gap. And so you've had so many other inspirational people on your podcast that I've, been, oh, that is such a good idea. And I just get so excited hearing about people who find an idea and make it happen. And so it's just been, it's been really fun after almost 20 years of being in the four walls of the veterinary clinic and just going through the day after day of seeing patients, to now be opened up to so many other aspects of veterinary medicine and all of these people who are doing so many wonderful things to help keep our profession going and keep it strong.
Thank you for sharing that and for being a part of it, being one of those passionate people. The stories, a commonality is they're born on pain, not to be dark, but all of us have in some way struggled and felt stuck and thought there's got to be better, or is this all there is? And kind of feeling that loss of hope a bit. I think it's like the hero's journey, that story. And watching how consistently these people that have been on the podcast have taken that and they've stuck with it and they've worked it out. It's like that Rubik's Cube. They don't give up, and they come out with something that is often from their own experience of, I wanted something better. Like with Relief Rover, she wished Relief Rover had existed back when she needed it. And now here it is. And I also like that it's a matchmaking service, because so often in every profession, right, we take a job and we think, I hope it's okay. Like we're basically married without really meeting. And then it's like, oh no, this is not a good company to work for. And then we're in that whole cycle again. So there's just so many wonderful kind of side effects that I see that come from each of these entities that exist. And the same thing with mentorship. I hear all the time young doctors feeling insecure and lack of confidence, and the high turnover rate. There's so many things that need to be resolved. And mentorship is a fabulous way to pull together. Again, there are many side benefits or side effects to it that are just a part of the package. So I'm really grateful for you to be on today. I love that we're all getting to know each other in this community and helping support veterinary medicine really thriving, getting back to where it needs to be. And animals deserve excellent care, but so do the people that are taking care of the animals.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you so much.
Sure. And how about where can people find out more about you? What's the best place for them to look?
So my website is readyvetgo.co, and I can be emailed at Dani@readyvetgo.co, and I'm on social media at readyvetgo.
Okay, excellent. And one quick thing we forgot to mention is that there is a free mini course that you can enroll in if you want to check it out. So Dani, tell us a little more about that.
I have a free mini course, which will give you an idea of what the 6-month program has to offer in a little bit more detail. You will have access to one of the online videos in the modules. You'll have access to some of the downloadable tools, and you'll have information about pricing and enrollment. So if you email me or go to the website, you will have access to the free mini course.
Fabulous. All that will be in the show notes for you all to check out, so people don't have to go looking for it. We'll also include links to those episodes that we mentioned previously as well. And, Dr. Dani, thank you again so much for being on today. And I look forward to staying in touch with you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you feel stoked after listening to this episode. And as always, I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Is there a topic that you want to know more about? Please let me know. And thank you again for subscribing and sharing your favorite episodes with others. It really means a lot.